Now we can see about the transport of food through the phloem. So which tissue is involved in translocation of food is phloem tissue. The plants will take in carbon dioxide and it uses the carbon dioxide for the synthesis of food by the process of photosynthesis. So normally the starch or the sugar will be synthesized by the plants, and that is sugar along with the other organic matter like amino acids will also be translocated or transported through the phloem. Now when we see the phloem is also made up of many cells. You can see the phloem parenchyma cell is there, companion cell is there. This is the sieve tube. Actually the sieve tube is mainly involved in the transport of food. Now, what we have seen earlier was the transport of water, but transport of water occurs unidirectionally. That means only in one direction the water will be transported, that is from the root to the tip of the plant, not from the tip to the root, because root is the part which is in contact with the water. Now in transport of food, if you see, it is bidirectional. The food can be transported in both the direction. That is, the leaves will synthesize the food and transport it to the root which requires it, or to the storage organs where the food has to be stored. So it can be transported downward, and suppose if it is stored in a storage organ, when there is a need, it can be taken up from the storage organ and it can be distributed to the parts where it is required. So we can say the transport of food is bidirectional. Okay, so here the phloem tissue is mainly responsible for the transport of food. Now how it occurs is with the help of energy. For transport of water there is no need of energy, but for the transport of food energy is required, and the food is mainly transported in the form of sucrose. That is the product of photosynthesis is the sugar, which is normally transported in the form of sucrose through the phloem. Now, which cells will synthesize the food? The mesophyll cells synthesize the food. What is mesophyll cell? These are the cells which are present between the epidermis. That means the upper surface of the leaf is covered by upper epidermis, and lower side is covered by the lower epidermis, and in between these two epidermis is the tissue which is called the mesophyll. So the cells of the mesophyll are rich in chloroplast and they synthesize the food, and from the mesophyll cell the food will be passed on to this sieve tubes or to the phloem tissue. Now when more and more food accumulates in this phloem, the concentration increases, that is osmotic pressure increases. So what happens, it will be getting the water from the nearby cells, that is nearby the phloem parenchyma, which will get the water from the nearby xylem, because near to the phloem will be the xylem. So from the xylem or from the neighboring cells it will get water. Again, you know that when the concentration inside the cell is more, that is less water concentration and more solute concentration is there, automatically water will be moving from the other cells into this cell where the osmotic pressure is more, or where the solute concentration is more, or where the water concentration is less. So more and more water enters into this phloem tissue. As a result, the pressure inside the phloem will be increased. Now this pressure will push the food along with that water through one of the phloem cell to the other. See, here also all the phloem cells will be connected one after the other. Just like in the previous slide I showed, the xylem cells are also connected one above the other, so that continuous film of water will be pulled upward. Like that here also the phloem cells will be connected one after the other, so that because of the pressure created inside the cell, it pushes the food from one of the cell to the other. So like that it will be pushing the food from one cell to the other till it reaches the cells where the pressure is very low and where the food is not available, or where the food has to be stored. So when it reaches there, the food will be taken up by that cells. So for this pushing of this food from one cell to the other, energy is required. For the transport of food from mesophyll cell to phloem also, what is required? Energy is required, and with that energy it will be pushed from one cell to other, and then it reaches the tissue where it has to be stored. There also, by utilizing the energy, it can be collected in the storage organs. Thus the food will be transported. And so during the spring season, when new leaves have to be formed and flowers and fruits have to be formed, again what happens? The food which is stored in the tissues will be taken up, in the storage organ will be taken up. That means it will be again transported in the opposite direction. Thus it can reach the shoot tips where new leaves are formed or flowers are formed. And that's why I told the in phloem the transport of food occurs bidirectionally. So this is how the transport of food occurs in phloem. I hope you understood this transportation in plants.